I'm sneaking out.
All right. First off, Sherry, was your secret, did it have something to do with an oak tree? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. All right, so Terry asked me to come back in and give a talk that I gave to members a little while ago on how cities, why they do what they do, and kind of get in the mind of the city manager what we're doing, what are our priorities, and why do we think the way that we do, which seems really strange. And so we're going to go through that today and how Auburn is structured and how we've done that over the years and what the results have been. So if we go way back in the 1970s, it used to be really kind of fun to be in the cities because if we needed more money, all the city council had to do is say we need to increase everyone's property tax by 5%. They dropped the gavel, boom, it was done. Didn't take all that long. Property taxes had skyrocketed with everybody, and Prop 13 came into play, rolled all that back and changed the game completely on how it would work. And so cities and government agencies panicked because it went from difficult, very easy to somewhat difficult, a whole new game came into play. And that's when the term economic development came into play in cities. Because all of a sudden we had to start looking for the kinds of businesses or development we would bring in that could raise money so we could provide services. Did that all kind of make sense? Change the game right then. So after Prop 13, the model that most cities followed to fund themselves over time were to bring in shopping malls, car dealerships, and big box stores. Those were the ones, the mainstay kind of businesses that actually paid the bills for a city. And during the 80s and the 90s, gosh, down in Southern California where I was the manager, we had redevelopment agencies as well, and we were stealing from each other all the time. It was a huge, really waste of money. But we were very, very covetous of other cities that had those kinds of businesses, and they went back and forth between jurisdictions. Let me give you just a little bit of knowledge to build on here. So, when you buy something in town, for every taxable dollar that you spend, the city gets 1 penny. When you write your really big property tax bill every year, the city gets about 18% of that. All right, so you spend a lot of money in taxes. That doesn't all stay here. The vast majority of it goes to other organizations, county level, state level, some federal. So over time, we know as city managers that residential development costs us money. It's a financial loser. So cities that are doing a ton of residential development, they're in money because they're making a lot of one-time money and big fees and stuff like that, so they're always doing well until they run out of land and then they're in a ton of trouble. So we look at creating commercial development because that brings in sales tax. And sales tax is great for us in 2 ways. One, we have a little bit of control over it by bringing in companies, and 2, it is a source of revenues for us that can increase at a rate faster than inflation often. Where property tax can only go up a maximum of 2% per year. So if we're trying to figure out how to structure an economy so we can continue to provide good services in the city, those are the kinds of things we're looking at. Auburn had some unique problems though. When I got here in 2003, we were falling off a financial cliff. We had 18 months till we were in real serious trouble. And so, you have a map here. Here's Old Town Auburn and here's downtown Auburn. So they're kind of the core of our commercial areas. And they currently make, so here's Old Town, currently brings in just less than $200,000 a year in sales tax. Downtown, almost $400,000. It's not a lot of money. If you think about it, put one cop on the street. It cost me $140,000. That's salaries, that's vehicles, that's training, equipment, all that kind of stuff. Firefighters about the same. Now you're providing those services 24/7. So in fact, these areas that are supposed to be providing enough revenues for the city to pay for the services in residential areas, they don't even pay for themselves. So it costs me much more to provide services to Old Town and downtown than it does to than it does to equal what they bring in. So it puts the city in a very awkward position financially. And we had always stayed focused on, wow, Old Town and Downtown, we gotta really make sure that those guys are thriving. Actually, when I came back here in 2017, the Economic Development Commission had done a ton of work. And I got back in their first meeting, they said, you know, the city must be doing great because we have all these new restaurants. Well, a restaurant makes the city about $10,000 a year. Not a lot. And then they had done this huge report and strategic plan where they were going to take a lot of city monies and focus it in here, so that would help float the city and give the city long-term financial help. No one had told them how this whole thing works. And in fact, we will never be able to get these two just to pay their own bills, let alone to pay the bills in the residential areas outside of the city, outside the commercial areas. All right? So that was a real problem, and it was a problem that we had repeated for years and years and years. We needed to get that changed. So back in 2003, we didn't know where we were going to get the money, the real substantial amount of money to pull the city up and out of its deficit. And through a long story, I had to go through the California tax code looking for financial anomalies in the tax code for oil companies. I was looking for the city of Long Beach at the time. Long Beach was looking to take back a lot of the oil properties that it had. And so I started just looking through all the different businesses in town to see what kind of anomalies there might be there and that we could apply. And in fact, there were two at the time. One of the two was Nello Oil. And we were able to cut a deal with Nello Oil that they would actually focus all of their business relationships right here in the city of Auburn. That instantly turned the city of Auburn into the fastest revenue growth city in the state. We just went like that. We went from deficit to a profit position where we could start providing a lot more services. It was very nice, but even that, it just kind of waned out over years. It was only one particular deal. So what we started to do is we knew, here's little Auburn, it's kind of built out. A lot of our regular commercial areas are kind of getting a little run down, threadbare. We have right below us, Rockland and Roseville, that were brilliantly positioned over the years, over the decades, to be great retail cities. And they did a brilliant job of it, beautifully done. And so in the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, they did magnificently. But as things have started to change since 2008 going forward, everything for cities has changed like with so many businesses. And just stuff that, people my age, all of us, we never kind of anticipated. We now have Amazon versus brick and mortar. Unbelievable how that has impacted cities in the way they do business. Age demographics. We're starting to become an older city. And when people move up in age, we spend more money on services than we do on stuff. Stuff is taxable, services are not. So even what you're spending your money on doesn't assist the city in just paying its basic bills. And then all sorts of things have changed. Ubers versus taxi communities versus hotels, banking online versus... The most frequently seen empty building in the United States is a bank building. They're everywhere. And grocery shopping is going online. Drone delivery will be starting up here. It actually started in some jurisdictions already. So things are just changing. And so we had to change with it. Fortunately, we did back in early 2000s, 2003 to 5. So we started marketing toward a different kind of business that a lot of cities were overlooking at the time. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds is giving me messages. He was saying my fly was down earlier. So we started to look for a different kind of business that could fund the city and wouldn't compete directly with the big cities down the hill. And we were also seeing now that even Roseville had to create a sales tax increase for its entire community because they had lost so much money in sales tax revenues over time. And in fact, they can't provide the same level of service that they could. So where we kind of differed is we started looking for manufacturers in growth industries with a national or international reach that were direct sellers of their product. Okay, that has been our goal in our market for several years now. The benefits are they're employers with the potential to grow. They can create a lot of great jobs. They experience less fluctuation during recessions, so they're a lot more stable during the ups and downs of things. And they produce sales tax. So they provide stability for a local economy, they provide jobs for a local economy, and they provide us with sales tax so we can continue to do our jobs more nicely. And these are really different kinds of businesses today than they used to be. We think of manufacturers, you think of a huge building with lots of parking, with thousands of people coming in and out. Some of those are still like that, but the vast majority, thank you, Monty, are starting to get smaller. In fact, we had for several years a software manufacturer in town. It was 4 guys and a gal. They did their business in a small Victorian home in downtown. And that little business alone produced almost as much sales tax as the entire district did. So they doubled it, just 5 people. So the footprint of a manufacturer today can be an entirely different looking entity than it used to be. And so we followed this path, and we started very heavily recruiting. Now, a lot of these companies, they can be diagnostic services, software development, tech engineers, media development companies, things like that. In fact, when I was up in Grass Valley, they have a cluster of 100 high-tech companies that are just world class. They're wonderful. But their number one problem up there, as I was finding it was here, is getting qualified people to want to move here. So you have those software engineers, those hardware engineers that are 25 to 45 years old, they live in the city, they live that lifestyle, they don't want to move up here. So in fact, in Grass Valley, with all those companies, most of those professionals, those 25 to 45-year-old professionals, they've worked for most of those companies because they keep stealing from each other, and they're all literally within a few square miles of one another, and they kind of just go bouncing back and forth, swiping from each other. So we started to look at why do these businesses come here. None of them come here as a business decision. There's just no good business move for it. It's 100% a quality of life move for these companies. And what Auburn does offer is a great quality of life for the right people. So if you have maybe 100 tech companies that are looking to relocate, maybe 5, 6 of them are looking for quality of life move. Those are our target people. Of all the companies that we have brought in over the years, of those that would tell me the truth after they moved here, I asked, what was that final decision point? Who made the decision? Why was it made? And the actual final decision was almost always made by the wife or the significant other, the CEO or the owner of the business. So it was always this quality of life. We had to check the marks and be able to provide certain things for all those companies. But in fact, it was purely quality of life that people were looking for. And it was the criteria, they were looking for bragging rights. Oh, I live in Auburn. Quality of life issues, school issues, proximity to conveniences. Auburn is very, very nice because we are a wonderful rural area to live, but we also have great shopping within 20 minutes. So it actually puts us in a nice little golden zone. So we started to really think of Auburn as a product to be sold to visitors and to these kind of companies who will create a strong and a stable economy for us. So things have radically changed. In 2003, when I did get here, out of the airport business park, the amount of sales tax produced there was de minimis, almost nothing. Today, 70% of the city's sales tax comes from the Auburn Airport Business Park and supports the city and its services. It's an entirely different way of doing things. So actually coming back this go-round, we really had to focus on stabilizing and strengthening this economy so it can carry the city for many, many more years. And we did it in very different ways, because Auburn does not have the kind of bank account to go head-to-head with traditional marketing and things like that. And so we wanted to first find a way to solve the problem of the CEO who would love to move here, but is worried about the fact that you can't hire the right kind of people. Okay? So we started a huge campaign in the Bay Area just focusing on the tech engineer. What kind of a great place it would be, it is to come to Auburn. And we didn't have the money to do it. In the first of several iterations of this campaign, you remember a few years back, we did something called the co-op. It was kind of a street fair, and people really, they loved it. It was going, it had nothing to do with the street fair. That's not what it was there for us to do. What actually we were doing is we did a huge amount of research. I didn't, Maura Rowe had done a huge amount of research to find online influencers that these tech guys and gals follow. And her job was to find all these people we could. It came down, we organized them. She had just a bazillion of them. And some of them were kind of strange. Of the different categories, they included coffee, tourism, travel. There were dating sites for kind of tech nerds. It went down from farms, foodies, beer, wine, artisans, different kinds of makers. And so we had to take this kind of random list of influencers and try to create something that coalesced around Auburn, and we wanted the influencers to love Auburn. So she came up with the whole idea of co-op, and she focused on makers and foodie type folks. And her whole gig was she had to go personally invite these people to come to Auburn, and she said, we were going to make an event for you people to celebrate you and all of your followers. Because say you had an influencer who every time they text out there into the Netherlands, 200,000 people listen to them. And they listen, and they're our target market. So they created the co-op really to celebrate the influencers and to give them a platform for them to enjoy. It became, the way it was crafted, it was so darn successful that we would watch on Instagram 24 hours before one of these events, 24 hours after one of these events, and we would average 10 million not hits, impressions per event just off of Instagram. It was amazing what occurred. And so we started then with other parts of this just going right to this same target market. Now we're actually recruiting the businesses there. We're actually going to the businesses with a number of real creative ways of approaching them. We have 4 right now that are circling the city, looking for the right kind of place. A lot of those companies could still fit in Old Town or downtown with very small footprints and produce a tremendous amount of money and some really nice jobs for local citizens. We just landed a huge company here in town. It's interesting because it was not a company on our list to go and look at. It didn't meet our exact criteria. But in fact, they were looking in a broad area, and they heard about our marketing. And like every other time that we land a big company like this, it was a quality of life decision that brought them here. So in this particular case, I had heard about this manufacturer looking to be in the area. And when I see the area, they actually are a supplier of an automotive manufacturer in Fremont. And so everybody was going for them. All the cities between here and the Bay Area, all the counties, everyone had wanted this particular company. We didn't do anything because we didn't think we stood a chance. And in fact, they ultimately ended up picking Auburn because the general manager loved the quality of life here, picked up on the marketing that had been going on, and they're doing the renovations to the building today. So they provide, and it's Air International, they provide the heating and air conditioning systems for Tesla. Different and strange. They're starting off with only about 26 employees. They'll be producing 700 units per week out of that facility. Then they will increase it up until 220 employees. I have no idea how many units are going out the door then. But they are a captive company just for the Fremont property, because coming all the way, it's 2.5 hour transfer time for them to take their units over there. Why would you do that when everybody within a closer proximity wanted to be there? And in fact, for the general manager, it was exactly what it normally is. It's a quality of life decision. He wanted it, this quality of life, he wanted it to be here. Unbelievable. Such a great job for the city. And they will be bringing in a number of other manufacturing companies just to support them. And that will provide, again, a really nice ongoing revenue stream for the city, a revenue stream for a lot of folks. They are hiring almost exclusively in the foothills area. So everybody that's coming in is going to be local employment. So I think it's a nice additional start. And as we start to see some of these additional companies land, we'll see an entirely different economic outlook for the city. And I think a really nice, healthy one. I see back there Steve Snyder. Steve, you are the only really big, strong retail producer that the city has left from 2003. You've done a magnificent job going through some really rough times. Congratulations. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions. Yes?
So you brought up several times quality of life.
Yes.
And so, quality of life, I have an idea in my mind. Other people, it's just kind of teach his own. Are you seeing a common thread when you see these companies come in? What is quality of life? How is it defined?
All right. Neat, good question. There was a drone company that does drones and software for the military and police industries. So my side of the research was every night going through all the trade magazines, trade articles, and listening to speeches of CEOs out in the Bay Area, trying to find out who is looking to relocate and why. And that is what created my list, and it's a list of about 60 companies on our targeted list. And in this particular case, he was talking to police chiefs up in Tahoe, and he spent half of his time, his talk time, about how horrible it is living in San Francisco and doing business there because of all the problems that are there and how we've got it right living the kind of lifestyle that we do. So those are the kind of comments that are actually being made very frequently out there. There's going to be more and more of a mass exodus, people looking for a more rural, comfortable lifestyle where they can still conduct business. That's who we're going for. So when we put together packaging, it always very much relates to who we are. It doesn't do us any good to try to sell us we're a Roseville, we're a Rockland. It's who we are. We're Auburn. And the personalized package that the leadership teams of the 60 companies that are on our list, this is what they are. We actually deliver these to them, and it provides a good deal of information about Auburn, but more than anything else, this whole package here, it gives people a really good understanding and look of what Auburn is like and what the Auburn lifestyle is like. We sell what we are, who we are, nothing else. We got to be the best that we can be of who we are. So we come back around full circle. EDC had done so much great work, and they really have the heart in the right place. They want to invest a lot of money here. I had to invest my money there because that is actually the kind of stuff that's going to make us money so we can continue to stay alive and provide good services. But the thing that actually sells, in most cases the wife of the CEO, is this. It's the lifestyle and the quality of life, especially in the downtown core that we provide. And so we have to invest just as heavily here as we do that kind of emphasis, because this is what's so important for us.
So I understand that Maura was instrumental in a lot of this.
Yeah.
And she's moved cross country.
Yeah.
Is she still working for the city, or have you replaced her?
Have not replaced her. She does do our social media still. But we also put together enough materials and steps in the marketing campaigns that it can continue on with just our work for about another year without having to create a new iteration of that.
I appreciate the idea of, really selling who we are and what we are in this community for what it is. But my guess is that there is somewhat of a pushback from some of the companies that you're targeting because of our, say, lack of diversity or lack of inclusivity. It can be perceived, whether it's there or not. But so how are you managing that, or is that not your target?
It just hasn't come up. I can see it coming up, and I'd be happy to have this discussion. It just hasn't come up yet. I think, though, at the same time, there's such tremendous diversity where they're at and where they're very unhappy. Maybe just a different environment is what they're looking for right now.
This is maybe a county question rather than a city question, but I'm interested in if there is a formula, if there's an open lot and you wanted to develop it, my impression is, whether it's county or city, we're going to be hit with all kinds of this and that fees and development this and that, and it's almost cost prohibitive. Is there a formula for that?
Not for these companies.
Okay.
It's de minimis by comparison to what they're in over there. I mean, it's an unbelievable cheap deal. For small businesses, yeah, that can become very onerous, and they just keep going up. And they will continue, most of that driven actually by the state.
I need the names and phone numbers of those 4 companies you said are circling down.
They do know about you. You're on my list.
What's the name of the company that's doing the heat and airs for Tesla?
That's Air International.
What kind of building are they renovating?
They're in the real big, what was the old vitamin store, the huge one? Mountain People's Warehouse, thank you. Yeah, with all the delivery bays, and those will just be going constantly.
How do you face the vacant storefronts we have here? You know, it's a group of people that the rate is so high.
Especially when we had Maura here, she was doing a huge amount of work on that. There has been very few storefronts that have not received multiple folks trying to get in there. The ones that are more endemic and long-term, that's almost every case, it's a landlord issue.
Kind of building on that, is there an outlook or a plan for larger, like million-plus square foot retail spaces that are empty as older big box companies continue to fail?
One of the next big projects we're going to be working on with the EDC is to look at all of the shopping strip malls that we have in town and start to re-envision those with different opportunities and type of opportunities. One thing that we are looking at, and I've come on blank on business names, also out at the airport, is the guys that manufacture the paddle boards and sell them out there. Doing great business. Love to have them in town, but we're looking for manufacturers who are also doing physical retail in a lot of those places. So when you drive in, say if Staples goes away someday, could we put in there a manufacturer of a product that also does retail right out of that store? So what you would look at it from the storefront is retail, but behind is also
Because
manufacturing.
when you get something that big that's empty, I mean, that's light. I mean, that's,
Absolutely. And it is a strong,
Kmart, I was, if
it's a strong
anyone was guessing, I
leverage.
was
Yeah, and it's going to continue to
Anybody
be a
been to
struggle.
Fry's lately? You can shoot a cannon through it.
You know, I went through Fry's last week and it was scary.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, there's no inventory. It's completely empty.
Kurt.
Bob, how do you stay ahead of the curve on the next technology infrastructure like 5G, broadband, all this kind of stuff these people are used to using?
It's not so much how do we stay ahead of it. It's coming. And especially 5G, it's interesting because there's, both the states and the federal government have just usurped the power of the localities on that. They're just trying to put those in. It's really, now the question is, how is 5G, how's that going to start to affect a lot of the fundamental stuff that we do? And there will not be driverless cars until we have a complete 5G system in place. Right, that's where it's going, and it does have the capacity to really create driverless cars as a reality. if we have the driverless cars, so my youngest daughter just went off to college, she said, Dad, I don't want a car. You know, when I went to college, heck yeah, we needed a car. Today, no, they're just gonna go and get an Uber, they don't want the hassle. It's completely changed mindsets. When we start to see though, driverless vehicles, you can start to see entire changes in the way parking patterns are. You can go out to the restaurant, to the movie, be dropped off by your car, have your car go park in a lot somewhere else in town. And it stays there until you call it back in. Those are the kinds of things we're looking at. So big, all that parking area outside of businesses and all, a lot of that will be obsolete. So we will have a whole lot of land space that we can creatively look at. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at and contemplating now.
I just had a question. Last time you talked to us, you said that the city was burning through about $1 million a year of reserves. Is it now, is that stopped?
Who said that?
I think you said it, but I'm not sure.
Well, we were burning reserves way back when I first got here in 2003. We had built reserves up over most of those years. We burned through a lot during the recession. Even though we had big reserves, we acted very quickly, and fortunately the actions we took turned out to be the right ones, so we didn't go through all that much reserves, how much we could have. And then we are going through some reserves right now, and one of the reasons is the council is so very concerned about fire safety that we brought on another 7 firefighters. We opened up a second station, and we've done things like we've gone from tackling about 6 acres on average a year, clearing it out. We did 50 this year. We're going to probably come close to doubling it next year. So yeah, we're starting to burn some reserves for really specific purposes, not just for general use.
At Nedler's, Bill Kirby mentioned the fact that we're trying to get more visibility as people pass through Auburn.
Yes.
By putting some sort of digital board or something of that nature to attract people. Can you talk about that?
He just brought that proposal forward to the council at the last meeting. He would like us to look at putting 2 electronic billboards, large signs on the freeway, going both directions. And we have not gotten that back to the council yet.
Is that typical with cities? That's what they're doing, putting reader boards?
I don't think a lot of cities do that. It's big in LA, major metropolitan areas where you're just like, I gotta stand out against this massive. No.
Yeah, Bob, as far back as I can remember, we talked about multi-level parking next to PG&E, that parking area down there. Has there been any recent discussion at all about doing something like that? I know Placerville has one, but I think they did that with redevelopment funds way back when those funds were available.
They did it way back when the federal government used to pay 80 to 90% of those costs for rural communities. And so that's how they got that in. And that was a program that is long gone. There's 2 things. There's just the cost of entry. Just to start that project, you're several $1 million in just to start it. And then it's about $26,000 right now per parking space. So it's a very expensive endeavor. And if we know that the 5G kind of issues are coming, I think we are better off in looking at land area on the outskirts of shopping areas for more mass parking rather than big expenditures for existing type of parking today.
So, talking about redevelopment and projects, I recall, I think you were behind it when they came up with 11 different projects in downtown, Old Town. They did the first 2 of them. The redevelopment money ran out. Is there any way that you could perceive them doing the other 9 at some point with something?
I don't think so. Redevelopment was a massive loss for Auburn because we had an agency for years, but it wasn't really structured the right way. And then we restructured it, boom, it came to life. And so we started on those projects, and we were just going to take them right down the line. But without that particular funding source, and I don't see it coming back, at least not in the same iteration that it used to be, I don't see it, which is a shame, because they were beautifully designed. One more? Mark.
I'm kind of curious on the old historical building that's down by the Native Sons, that one that they tore down, bricks, you know, the brick shell basically, and they tore down an old town, and then Mitch has his building vacant, and then you've got the Wells Fargo building, Mickey Boots, which is Bill's, and Auburn Drug and Buffalo Village Started. I'm kind of curious what's going to go in those. Do you know anything that's going in those that are because of the vacancy on that? Yeah, well, I mean, you know, enlighten me, because I mean, I would walk around and I see these, and I'm just curious if something's going to happen with retail or stuff on these, or they're
Get it ebbs and flows. And we were up to just about complete capacity, except for a handful of folks that just didn't want to lease out their place. We literally have a number of property owners who have owned their buildings so long, they've been paid off for so long, they're getting up there in age and they don't want the hassle of a tenant. And we can't get them to lease the darn things. Right now, we just had some businesses go out. It just ebbs and flows over time, but we still have very strong demand of businesses, small businesses trying to get into town. That's not waning at all. It is now a completely template deal. What I can do is help bring people in and introduce them. The actual private deal is private, and something we're not
How
involved
about the one that they, you know, tore down in Brooklyn and Old Town? Is anything gonna happen on that lot now, or?
Yeah, it actually will be rebuilt
Yeah.
in very much the same
Is that
way.
gonna happen near term, or is that way out? Or
He just got an extension on his permits. He's in the military, so he bounces in and out of the country. So it's stalled, but every time he's in country, he moves forward again. Okay, thank you very much.